Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Keith Roddan. I work with 3M Thailand, but I cover all of Asia for 15 subsidiaries which 3M has in this region. What I've been asked to talk about today is really use of technology in training for health and safety. And I've got two examples that I particularly want to cover today. The first one is VR, and we'll talk a little bit about how we use VR to better engage with people who work at height. We will also talk a little bit about fit testing and how we can use that tool as a training tool to enhance the user's awareness and get better cooperation associated with their use. So VR for fall protection. Unfortunately, fall protection, fall from heights, is usually the main cause of death in just about every country in terms of industry. People still don't use fall protection correctly, and sometimes it's very difficult to get them to be trained correctly in the use of this type of products. So, obviously, in-person training is the best solution, and we do have a training center here in Thailand where we can educate workers to work at heights, work on scaffolding, work on beams, and entry into confined spaces. But it's not always practical to bring your workforce to our training center, and we have to find other ways of engaging with the workers who are going to be working at height. We have a lot of equipment in this sort of session. We have a limited number of people that we can train at any one time, and we have to find ways of improving the number of people that we can train at any one time. So virtual reality was a tool we decided to try and investigate. We want to try and find something that is memorable. It's something that stays in people's minds after they've been through the training. We also have to recognize that there may be budget constraints. It may not be possible to send 20, 30, 40 people to a training center for 1 or 2 days. It may be cost prohibitive. Multi-generational workforces. Some people learn differently. They like having technology as a way of learning when they're working with safety. Time constraints, and actually trying to keep training fresh. So we have developed some virtual reality training tools to try and help with these issues and trying to get people to remember more about what we're teaching them. We're really looking to try and influence their behavior. Make sure that they remember things better so that when they work at height, they work in a much more effective way. We're trying to increase productivity. We're trying to train people quicker, and we're also trying to drive a safety culture. So virtual reality is a tool that we find can help us in this particular area. Firstly, it's memorable. If anybody's been through a virtual reality training, it's something you do remember. We have a system where at one point people can actually fall off a building, and we do have people scream when they fall off the building, even though it's on a flat surface in an office. It is memorable when you put people through virtual reality training. It's cost effective. It doesn't take a lot of time. It's relatively easy to set up, and we can train a lot of people in a short period of time. It's safe. If you're training within an office or within a training center in virtual reality, you don't have to have people 5, 6 meters up in the air where maybe it's not as safe to go through the training. It's interactive. People can follow their own way through the course. Through the virtual reality, there's no defined answer that they have to follow a certain path. So they try and explore more with this type of technology. And as I say, it's immersive. It really does make you feel as though you're on top of a building, even if you're not. So there are a lot of benefits that we have with the virtual reality training. Probably the most important one is memorable. When you're looking at a health and safety professional's view, you're trying to struggle to keep the engagement of the workforce. You're trying to get them to remember what you're training, and sometimes they go through many training sessions, and it's too easy to forget. You may have a lot of people you need to put through the training, and you need to be able to do it quickly. You want to know if they've actually remembered, so it can be a test of their learning, and it's relatively cheap compared to going through a full 1 or 2 day training course. And it's creating relevance. So with all those things in mind, we have developed a series of apps to help people feel what it's like to work at height and work effectively at height. We have a tool which lasts up to 40 minutes to allow people to experience different aspects of working at height, and I'll talk a little bit in detail about that. We have an app that allows people to inspect the safety harness before they without actually having a safety harness. They can inspect all the aspects. They can learn how to identify what are the critical parts of the equipment. Are they in good condition? How can they maintain them? How can they work through them? We have a shorter awareness video that we have with some people that can use just to make them aware of what it's like to work at height. And then we've got a welding, because quite a lot of welding happens at height. And we have an app that specifically covers welding training while working at height. So we can simulate a lot of different areas and help people acclimatize to a problem. The 40-minute app breaks down into 4 particular sections. Checking site hazards, making people aware of what it is that they should and shouldn't be doing. Checking anchor points. Unfortunately, a lot of the time people do fall from heights. It's because the anchor that they were connected to was not firmly put in place. And although they were connected to something, that something wasn't connected to the building correctly. We can look at erecting beams and get the worker to experience that sort of operation. And we also have a section about corrugated roofs and installing corrugated roofs. So all of these things can be simulated in the virtual reality program. So, experiencing work at height scenario, gaining practical exposure, learning more about safety practices, and gaining an awareness. All of these things can be done in virtual reality. And I have a short video here just to give you a feel for what it looks like. And can you confirm if it's actually running?
Standing on a narrow walkway hundreds of feet in the air, you look around to see the tops of buildings and birds soaring. It's so real. Your pulse quickens. Is your harness in the right condition for this job? Are you connected to your lifeline? Don't find out when it's too late. Education and training with virtual reality puts people in real-world situations without real-world consequences. Preparing for a job and the actual job tasks can be complicated. Training for these jobs in a real environment can be downright difficult. VR can immerse you in environments that are difficult to train in but must be worked in. It can help establish and reinforce procedures needed to get jobs done safely and improve productivity of tasks. Engage the multi-generation workforce in a fun and enjoyable way.
So seeing a video isn't the same as experiencing it. And if anybody does want to experience this, we can either invite you to one of our centers or even bring the equipment for you to try it out. It is very immersive. It does make people feel as though they're working it out. Where you saw the person fall off the building, as I say, we've seen people scream at that point. They were that convinced that they were up on top of a building. So it's a very useful tool. It's very memorable. It makes people think, and it makes people experience, but in a safe environment. And it helps people remember. So in terms of VR and the fall protection systems we have, it really is an immersive learning experience. It helps people remember. It's a different way of learning. It's not just a PowerPoint presentation or even a hands-on session. It's memorable. It's a safe environment. It's cost-effective. It's scalable. You can get a lot of people to go through the training course in a relatively short period of time, and it's something which you can't really do easily in the training center that we have here in Thailand. And it increases engagement. It makes people think, it makes people share, it makes people talk about it. So it's a tool which we can use to enhance training, enhance the training experience, and make people remember and therefore learn better. So that was the first example I wanted to give you of using technology and tools to train and to make things more memorable for the employers. The second area I want to talk about is hearing protection. And hearing protection is something which is always very difficult to get people to engage with. As you lose your hearing, it happens over years. It doesn't happen from one day to the next, and therefore it's very difficult to get people to use the personal protective equipment effectively. And we have a tool, an ear-fit test tool, which I can show you how you can use to enhance the wearing and the use and therefore the protection offered to workers with hearing protective equipment. We have a system where it can be used in a classroom, in an office. We have a sound generator which generates 7 different frequencies at the same time, so you get one blast of sound. The subject is asked to wear earplug or earmuff of their choice, and we have a microphone outside the device, and we have a microphone that goes inside the ear canal. So we can actually measure the difference in the sound in the environment and what happens after the personal protective equipment. The worker doesn't need to respond. The system itself, the microphones, pick up the effectiveness. And it's fast. It probably takes about 2 minutes to set up. The test lasts about 30 seconds, and then it depends how much of a discussion you want after that. We've been into several factories with this device and trying to use it as a training tool, as I say. And this particular example here was a factory that we went into where we just asked everybody to put in the earplug as they would normally. And then we tested them. And 70% of the workforce were getting the level of protection that they were expecting. Unfortunately, nearly 30% weren't getting the level of protection. However, we could use the tool to see what happens after we've retrained the workers. We've shown them earplugs look very simple, but it's amazing how many people don't know how to put them in correctly. So we can use this opportunity to retrain, and in this situation we got about a 17% additional population getting protected just after simply retraining them. Unfortunately, there were still people who didn't get the protection they needed, and we had to offer them a different device, different style, different size, different material, and after that and the retraining, they were able to get the level of protection we were expecting. And then eventually there was a very small proportion that needed earmuffs. No earplug would fit, So we had to find an alternative device, which was the earmuff, and less than 1% needed their ears cleaned. So we use this for training and motivation. We go into the factory. The blue line, this is the result of 91 subjects. The blue dots are the protection they were getting when we went in and tested them without any additional training. As you can see, some of them were actually getting no protection at all. They were just setting the earplug on the edge of their ear. They weren't inserting it at any level, but they thought that was the right way to wear it. You will see the protection increasing up to about a 20 dB reduction in noise when they were wearing the product correctly. But we then used the opportunity to retrain them, all of them. And the red dots are what happens after we've retained them. So you can actually use this tool as a way of showing them what it feels like to fit the device correctly. If it's just sort of put on the edge of the ear canal, there's no insertion, they then see that they don't get any protection. But when they insert it correctly, they compress it correctly if it's a disposable earplug, they insert it correctly if it's a reusable earplug, you can see the performance increases. So we have done this in several factories. This is an example of 3 different factories we went to. We trained them, we talked to them, we showed them how the product works. We got the improvement in terms of the protection. But then we went, so the baseline, factory A, they were getting somewhere between 5 and 10 dB attenuation before training. It went up to between 15 and 20 after training. Factory B, less than 5 up to 15. Factory C, much less than 5 up to about 15. But we then went back 6 months later to find out how effective that training was retained in their minds. And in factory A and 8B, it wasn't too bad. There was a small drop-off in the protection that the devices were given, but it was pretty close to what happened after we had trained the people. But if you look at factory C, there was a significant drop-off in the performance. People had either forgotten what we told them, or there hadn't been sufficient supervision, or there'd been a turnover of staff. But what it suggests that in factory C, we probably need to do more regular training, because we can see the drop-off in the performance more significantly in that factory versus factory A and B. So this is a tool that gives immediate feedback. The users can actually see the performance that the device is giving in the way that they wear it, and they can see the performance, the increase in performance after they insert the product correctly. And we can also use it as a tool to check if there is a need for retraining, which is extremely important in this particular area. So it's another use of technology. It's another way of persuading people. Rather than just issuing product and say, please use this hearing protecting device, you can actually assess whether they have learned, and you can reassess if they need training. So it's another of the tools that you can use to enhance personal protective equipment. Training is absolutely critical. We as a manufacturer spend a lot of time making sure that these devices are technically good at performing. We also put a lot of work into trying to make them less uncomfortable. But the most important thing, and where most of personal protective equipment fails, is in the training and education of the user. If the user is not correctly trained and educated, if the user is not engaged, if the user does not get feedback, the personal protective equipment will probably be used incorrectly. And in many cases, you may be wasting your money in buying the equipment because it's not protecting people, as you can see on the blue line here, because the people don't know it's not protecting them. So couple of examples for you to think of: VR for fall protection, fit testing for hearing. You can use technology to enhance training, and you can get significant improvements in the amount of protection people get if you use an engagement or a tool that engages the workers effectively. Teachable moment gives you a chance one-to-one to talk to the worker, which is very important. It gives immediate feedback, and it identifies the need for more training. So a couple of examples for you to think about. I hope that generates some thought for your particular environment. Thank you.